Good day, this 284th day, Meaningful Moments, 365 days. Perhaps some of you have experienced this sensation of time with a different quality of it, rather than this linear track that moves in a straight line. We experience it as in looping. Perhaps looping this way like a lemniscate, or perhaps looping this way and intersecting and coming around like a pretzel and kind of collapsing into itself. And this is something that I've noticed with the ability to perceive the flows that we're moving in and being very conscious and present to the moment. An example of that would be today, from one transition to the next, a meeting, a piece of homework, responses, a conversation with a loved one, stop, make a lunch, all the preparation mindfully involved in creating something with a lot of love, the nourishment, sitting down to pause and actually digest that experience, the conversation there, another meeting, and just one thing into the next, but not in this linear way, like this checklist of things to do. We're all used to that. We've all experienced that plenty of times. And it's a different kind of energy, because when we do that, we experience almost a draining, like there's a little bit of a to do, checked off, and we move through this list in a rather, even though it's organized, it's still segregated, like fragmented. This is done, now this next thing is done, now this next thing is done, as opposed to this continuum that happens when we loop around with this consciousness and this presence of being in the moment. And then we find ourselves tracking through these different ways. And for instance, that conversation that I had with a loved one looped around into like years ago, an earlier time period, decades ago, but it was right there in that moment. And there was a shared experience. And the same with meetings. They were synergized in different ways, but they were looping around with things of the future and vision that's upcoming. And yet it's all here in the now. And rather than a draining, it's like an imbibing, an alive feeling, a feeling that is exhilarating. It gives energy, it lends to energy, it amplifies the energy. And it's all with this breathing into the moment and being very present with it, and just being able to experience time in a different way. So if you're out there having these quantum experiences, or know what the Twilight Zone was all about way back when that series was out on TV, you know that we're having these different experiences now more readily understood and perceived by us, not just from our own personal experiences, but in a quantifiable quantum way that's measured now by science. And this exploration of all these new capacities and frontiers of the brain that we haven't explored yet, and that still mystify us, and that we're still learning about, but that now we're starting to understand exist, and leads us into a better understanding of ourselves as multidimensional beings, and how we work, live, are, be in the world on all these planes, and this expansion of our consciousness that allows us to exist in these ways, all here now at once. So just a little sharing today of that quantum exploration of ourselves and the human beings that we are evolving into. It's an exciting time. Aho, friends.